Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We have arrived at week 10 of the Comtown reboot. And I have to say, the vibe has definitely shifted.
It really has.
You know how the first half of the season, it feels like everyone is just sort of feeling each other out. It's fluid, a little experimental.
Right, right.
Well, week 10 is where the cement starts to dry.
That is the perfect way to put it. The standings stop being these polite suggestions and they start becoming hard reality.
This is the week where the pretenders get quietly ushered toward the exit.
And the actual contenders look around and realize the mountain they still have to climb is getting a lot steeper.
A lot steeper.
Exactly. And today we're unpacking the Week 10 Gridiron Report. But we aren't just going to read you scores. You have an app for that. We need to figure out the identity of this season. Because looking at this data, this isn't normal football.
No, it's not.
We've got scores that look like basketball results, quarterback stats that look like typos, and a margin for error that is basically non-existent now. It's the reboot era in full effect. I mean, if you look at the underlying metrics, this season has evolved into an arms race. The data shows that elite quarterback play, that explosive offensive output, it's not just an advantage anymore.
It's the cost of entry.
It is the baseline requirement to even compete. If you can't put up 30 points in your sleep, you are essentially bringing a knife to a nuclear war.
That is a terrifying image, but looking at the statement wins from this week, it feels accurate. We have to start with the fireworks. We have to start with Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
They played Indianapolis, and the final score was 59-34. 59 points.
It's a massive number, obviously. But I want to look past the 59 for just a second. What stands out to me is the efficiency. To score that many points in a professional level of simulation, you aren't just getting lucky deep balls.
Yo.
You are executing on almost every single drive. It implies, a schematic dominance where Indianapolis just didn't have the personnel to match up.
It felt like they were playing on a different speed setting. And a score like that, it sends a message, doesn't it? It's not just a win.
No, it's intimidation.
It really is.
It frames Atlanta as one of the league's most dangerous scoring teams, specifically because they don't seem to have a brake pedal. And that factor matters. When opposing defensive coordinators see that tape, they panic.
Right.
They start overthinking their coverages because they know if they make one mistake, it's a touchdown. It changes how opponents play you before the game even starts.
Speaking of not having a brake pedal, let's look at Houston. They took down Jacksonville 48-17. Now, in a lot of games, you get up by 3 touchdowns. You put in the backups, run the clock.
Go home.
Go home. Houston did not do that.
No, they didn't. And I think that's a crucial insight into this team's mindset right now. They pulled away early and just never let up. In the past, we might critique that as poor sportsmanship, but in this current reboot format, style points matter.
Point differential.
Point differential matters, and momentum matters.
So it's a killer instinct thing.
Absolutely. It shows they aren't just happy to be in the playoff hunt. They want to be the team nobody wants to play. If you let up, you give Jacksonville a glimmer of hope. Houston crushed that. They suffocated them. That's a championship trait.
It really feels like the tiers are separating fast. You look at the Rams taking down San Francisco 40-21. Now, San Francisco, they usually pride themselves on defense, on being physical, and the Rams just hung 40 on them.
That's the most significant result of the group for me. Beating Indianapolis or Jacksonville is one thing, but dismantling San Francisco by nearly 20 points, that is the Rams separating themselves from the pack. It signals that even against a quality opponent, this offensive formula works. It validates their whole system.
So we have Atlanta, Houston, the Rams, all blowing teams out.
Yeah.
But then we get Minnesota versus Baltimore. And this is where I want your take, because this game was pure chaos. Minnesota wins 45-38.
It was a shootout.
It's a shootout. Entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
But is it good?
See, this is where I pump the brakes a little on the enthusiasm. From a fan perspective, incredible game, trading scores, back and forth, you love to see it.
Right.
But if I'm the Minnesota coaching staff, I am not celebrating this win. I'm relieved, sure, but I'm also terrified.
Because they gave up 38 points.
Exactly. The narrative is Minnesota stays hot in high-pressure environments. And yes, you have to credit the offense for keeping pace, but the fact that they had to score 45 just to win is a massive red flag. Playoff football usually slows down, defenses tighten up. If your path to victory relies on winning a track meet every single week, eventually you're going to trip.
So you think they're living dangerously?
I think they are walking a tightrope. It proves their offense is elite, no question, but also proves their defense is a liability. In Week 10, that's exciting. In Week 17, that gets you sent home.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. And it brings us to the flip side of the coin. We've been talking about these video game scores, but then you look at the grinders.
Yeah.
The teams that won ugly, and I look at Chicago. They beat New York 24-21.
Now, that is a football game.
See, I knew you'd like that one. It came down to execution late.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds stressful. To you, that sounds like...
It sounds like sustainability. Look, winning 59-34 is fun, but winning 24-21 requires situational mastery. It means you had to manage the clock, you had to make a third and short when the whole stadium knew you were running.
And get a stop when it mattered.
And get a stop when it mattered most.
It builds character.
It builds muscle memory. When you get to the playoffs, you are going to have tight games. Chicago is practicing for that reality right now. Atlanta isn't. Atlanta is practicing blowing people out. What happens to them when they get punched in the mouth and it's a tie game in the fourth quarter? We don't know. We know Chicago can handle it.
That's a really interesting point. You'd rather be battle-tested than comfortable.
In Week 10, absolutely.
What about Miami? They defended home field against Buffalo 32-28. Buffalo's a heavy hitter, so this feels like more than just a standard win.
This is what we call a positional victory. It has real implications near the top of the conference. If Miami loses that game, they drop right into the muddy middle of the playoff race.
Right.
By winning, specifically against a direct competitor like Buffalo, they effectively swing the standings by 2 games.
It's a 6-pointer, as they say in soccer.
Precisely. And doing it at home is key. You have to hold serve. If you want a home playoff game, you cannot lose these matchups in your own building. Miami proves they can close out a good team. That earns respect.
Before we move on to the stats, which, frankly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around, we should mention the middle of the pack. New England handled Tampa Bay on the road, got above 500, and Washington looks surprisingly sharp against Detroit, 35-14.
Washington is the interesting one there. 35-14 is a dominant scoreline against a Detroit team that usually fights hard. It keeps Washington in the playoff conversation.
Just lurking.
Exactly, they're lurking. And honestly, at this time of year, in the conversation is all you can ask for. If any of those top teams stumble, Washington is positioned to pounce.
Okay. We have to do it.
Yeah.
We have to talk about these numbers. I was reading through the player stats for Week 10, and I honestly thought I was looking at a glitch. The sheer production.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
It's anomalous. We've seen offensive errors before, but this is something different. It feels like the offensive meta has just completely broken the defensive adjustments.
Let's start with the quarterback stratosphere, and we have to talk about Joe Milton III. Just listen to this. Passing yards, over 4,200. Touchdowns, 53.
In 10 weeks.
53 touchdowns in 10 weeks. That averages out to, what, 5.3 touchdowns per game?
It dwarfs the rest of the field. I mean, it's historic.
How is that even possible? I mean, technically speaking, is he just throwing into empty fields?
Well, looking at the breakdown, it's not just deep balls. It's the intermediate efficiency. Milton is destroying teams in that 15 to 25-yard range. Defenses are so terrified of his arm strength, so they're playing safeties deep.
To stop the 60-yard bomb.
Right. But that leaves the middle of the field wide open. He's taken 20-yard chunks at will.
So they're giving him the medium stuff to stop the long stuff, and he's just eating them alive with it.
Exactly. He's taking what the defense gives him, but he's doing it with such velocity and accuracy that the bend don't break, defense is just breaking. He's on pace for a season that shouldn't be mathematically possible.
And the crazy thing is, he's not alone. He's just the most extreme example. You have Cam Ward right behind him.
Cam Ward would be the unanimous MVP in literally any other season.
He's got nearly 4,000 yards and 42 touchdowns. Connect that back to Atlanta for me.
Well, that's the engine. We talked about Atlanta scoring 59 points. That happens because Cam Ward is throwing 4 touchdowns a game as a baseline. It reinforces why Atlanta is elite. They have a trigger man who is operating at near perfection.
And even Spencer Rattler, who feels like he's having a quiet year by comparison, has crossed 3,600 yards. The bar has been raised so high that great just looks average.
That's the danger for teams that don't have one of these guys. If your quarterback is good and he throws 2 touchdowns a game, you're losing by 20 points.
Yeah.
The standard for entry into that elite tier has shifted. You need a superhero at quarterback now.
It's not just the arms race, though. The skill positions are putting up numbers that make my fantasy team look embarrassing. Jahmyr Gibbs on the ground.
The most productive rusher in the league, hands down.
He's closing in on 1,500 yards and has 21 touchdowns.
Oh.
How does a running back score 21 times in an era where everyone is throwing 50 times a game?
Paradoxically, the passing boom helps him. Think about it. If you are a defensive coordinator facing an offense that throws for 400 yards, what do?
You play nickel and dime packages,
You put smaller, faster defensive backs on the field to cover the pass.
which leaves you small up front.
Exactly. You have light boxes. So Gibbs is running against defenses built to stop the pass. He's too fast for the linebackers and too strong for the safeties. It's a pick-your-poison scenario.
Wow.
If you load the box to stop Gibbs, the quarterback throws for 5 touchdowns. If you drop back to stop the pass, Gibbs runs for 150 yards and 2 scores.
It's a nightmare. And speaking of the path catchers, Puka Nacua is leading everyone with over 1,700 receiving yards and 20 touchdowns, and Xavier Worthy is right there with him.
Again, it's a separation. These guys are just getting open instantly. The window for the quarterback is huge. It really feels like the rules, the athleticism, the schemes, it's all converged to make playing defense almost impossible this season.
Which brings us to the now what? Because Week 10 isn't actually over yet. We've been dissecting the games in the books, but the Gridiron Report lists pending matchups that honestly feel even higher stakes.
They do. We are pivoting from what happened to what is necessary. And for a few of these teams, the word is desperation.
Las Vegas at Denver. The report calls them two teams desperate for wins.
This is the Desperation Bowl. Both of these teams are looking at the standings and doing the math. A loss here might mathematically keep them alive, but psychologically, it's a death blow.
What does that look like on the field? Do you think we see conservative play, scared to make a mistake? Or do they just let it rip?
In Week 10, you let it rip. Desperation usually leads to trick plays, aggressive force down calls, high variance. Neither team can afford a moral victory. They need the W. I expect that game to be messy, emotional, and probably very close.
Then we have Philadelphia at Green Bay. The report frames this as teams looking to stabilize their seasons. That sounds a little less frantic than desperation.
Stabilize is code for stop the bleeding. These are probably teams that had high expectations but have been inconsistent. Maybe they lose one, win one, look great one week, look terrible the next.
Yeah.
They just need a boring, solid win to calm everyone down. They aren't trying to save the season from the brink. They are trying to get the train back on the tracks before it derails.
And then we have the big one. Arizona at Seattle, labeled as having major playoff implications.
This is the game of the week to me. When you hear major playoff implications in Week 10, that usually means it's a head-to-head tiebreaker scenario.
Winner takes the driver's seat.
Right. If Arizona wins, they might push Seattle out of a wild card spot. If Seattle wins at home, they bury Arizona. The atmosphere in Seattle is going to be electric. This is essentially a playoff game in November.
And, tucked away quietly, we have Pittsburgh at the Chargers. The report says it could quietly impact the wild card race.
Quietly is the key word there. Nobody is talking about this game on the national stage. But Pittsburgh and the Chargers are those teams that hover around 500. One of them is going to sneak into the 7th seed, and this game might be the reason why.
Right.
It's the game you forget about now, but you look back on it in Week 18 and say, oh, that's where we lost the season.
And finally, Cleveland at the NY Jets.
Yeah.
A mid-standings shakeup.
Jockeying for draft position or pride mostly. But hey, still professionals playing for jobs.
So we've covered the blowouts, the grinders, the absurd stats, the games to come. If we zoom all the way out, what is the headline for Week 10? What's the one thing you need to understand about the state of the Compound reboot right now?
The headline is that the margin for error has evaporated. We're seeing a bifurcation of the league. You have the elite, the teams with the 50 touchdown quarterbacks and the 59-point offenses, and you have everyone else. And if you're in that everyone else category, you are running out of time to figure it out.
It really feels like the offensive explosion has just changed the criteria for winning. Used to be defense wins championships. Now it feels like defense just tries to survive while the offense wins the championship.
That's the shift. And my final warning for the season is this: speed kills, but inconsistency kills faster. The teams that can maintain this high-octane pace will separate. The teams that have one bad week where the QB throws 2 picks instead of 5 touchdowns, they're going to get left behind.
It's a high-wire act with no net.
Yeah.
And that leads to the thought I want to leave you with. We spent a lot of time praising Chicago for that gritty 24-21 win. We called it championship football. But I have to ask, in a league where Joe Milton is throwing 53 touchdowns and Atlanta is dropping 59 points, Is the grinder model actually dead?
That is the ultimate question.
Can a team like Chicago actually beat a team like Atlanta in January? Or has the game fundamentally shifted so far toward pure offensive output that execution late simply doesn't matter because you're already down by 30 at halftime?
My heart says defense still matters. My head, looking at these stats, I'm not so sure. If you can't score 40, you might just be a spectator in this league.
Something to think about while you watch those pending matchups. Keep a close eye on that Arizona-Seattle game. The intensity is going to be off the charts.
Absolutely. Enjoy the games, everyone.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.